Hello everyone, welcome. Today we are going to touch the topic of remote meetings. You may say remote meetings, it doesn't really apply to me, I'm not interested, but actually it does, and I can prove you that because remote meetings apply to both remote workers only working in different time zones, different parts of the world, sometimes different parts of the country if you have your team in different cities and different offices. Or it sometimes may happen that you actually have people in the same building, but you're also conducting a remote meeting for some reason. All right? So I will try to tell you today how to do it right to avoid miscommunication, to avoid the huge mess around remote meetings when everybody's trying to say something or people feel neglected or in the end there is no agenda. There is so many question marks. So if you're interested to get to know more about it, how to do it right in order to avoid mutual frustration, let's get ready then. All right, the first and most important thing is the right tool. At first, think about it. How many participants will be joining your online meeting? Whether you want to facilitate the meeting or which tool is also the most compatible with your current system. So if everybody in your team, for example, or in your company uses Microsoft Teams, you're not necessarily going to say, hey, today let's just do it on Google Hangouts. And it depends how many participants you have, as I've said before, because if it's a one-to-one meeting, then it's going to be different. But if you're going to have 10, 15 people, it's also a different story. One more thing, the question is, what do you expect from this tool? Is it just supposed to be verbal communication, or is it also supposed to be some sharing, maybe your screen, you want to share your screen, or you may want to also do all other kind of online collaboration. So think about it when you choose the tool and what you really expect from it. That's the first thing. There are plenty of them available on the market, so I'm sure you're going to find the thing that you really need. The second and one of the most important things, I always say that everything is super important, is the location. Where are you located and where is your team located, okay? So if you are in Europe, but you want to connect with somebody who is actually in the United States, you're not necessarily going to choose early morning hours in Europe because the people in the US will be sleeping, right? So think about it. What makes sense the most for me as I collaborate obviously in Europe and I collaborate in the United States and also in South America with many people, then when we schedule these meetings, then usually I take into account Eastern time and also what time it is in California. Sometimes we also have to connect with Asia, so we try to maneuver as much as possible in order to make it work. Now there is a great tool which is called the World Clock Planner. There are actually many of these, but if you have a team, you can actually adjust the times with this particular tool to make sure and to check whether everybody's going to be available, taking into account time zones. One other thing, if it's super necessary for all of you to meet, and maybe somebody won't be able to do it in the morning, some other people are not available in the evening, during weekdays, you may consider a Saturday. That also works well, and I've done that before, but obviously you have to talk about it first and plan. Well, another matter is obviously scheduling it in advance. There is nothing worse than letting somebody know last minute that the meeting is going to be today in 15 minutes or in a couple of hours. But again, we are talking about team meetings, okay? Scheduled team meetings where we are actually planning what we're going to do together. It's not about urgent matters. If it's something urgent, you can always use other tools, reach out to somebody to have a one-to-one conversation, or just let them know that it's just something that popped up immediately and it just needs to be resolved. But any other than that, try to plan as much as possible in advance to make sure that everybody actually attends. Well, if you have already experienced online meetings with people being in different locations, so which are remote meetings, I think that you have probably come across an issue which is lack of an agenda. That means everybody's talking at the same time, or somebody feels neglected because they can't say what they have in mind and another person is constantly interrupting. Or you start a meeting, the meeting is supposed to take 45 minutes, but it takes an hour and a half because there was no agenda in the very beginning. Who is going to say what, how it's going to be introduced in the beginning of the meeting, what the flow is supposed to be, what the outcome is supposed to be. It needs to have a structure. Most importantly, what are you going to talk about? So if you tell upfront what you're going to talk about, what the steps are going to be, then also all your participants can prepare themselves and know exactly what to expect. And then in the end, what is going to be planned. Such an approach is going to really increase productivity during such a remote meeting. Another thing which is actually super broad is the culture of a remote meeting. The culture of a remote meeting, what does it really mean? Well, there's so many aspects. One aspect is you definitely have to make sure that your internet connection is working properly, because it won't, no matter what you do, if it doesn't, no matter what you do, then your meeting is just not going to work out, because none of the things I've said before will ever take place. So obviously, you have to think about it. Who is going to be the moderator? Who is going to speak and when? If you have some particular signs when somebody can say, hey, give me voice, that there's supposed to be no interruptions, how people are going to talk to each other, and what the outcome is also supposed to be. So if you, for example, have teams that work together, they are supposed to collaborate, there are different tools in order to make it work. So here you should also make sure that the culture of the entire meeting is actually right. Because if it's not, again, it's going to lead a completely huge communication mess. And in the end, it is always highly recommended to share notes and always to have a summary of each meeting, because if you do that, everybody is able to know what next steps are going to be taken, what everybody needs to do, what the responsibilities are. So basically, all these insights that I have shared with you today, I really hope are going to help you, whether you're organizing your first online meeting, remote meeting, or you have done that many times and you have been super frustrated. If you're a host or if you're a participant, you may want to share this with your team in order to make sure that remote work is really, really productive. Thank you so much for watching today.